Fellow listeners, welcome to Get Your Stripes, where we explore the skies and the stories of those who navigate them. I'm Krushil Amrutiya, an amateur pilot on my own journey towards earning my wings through a private pilot license. In today's episode, we're joined by Joel George, a fellow aviation enthusiast who's close to completing their instrument rating training. We'll dive into the highs and lows of pilot training and what it takes to reach new altitudes in this field.
I just want to start off saying that, I'm just a student pilot. I'm a private pilot, but I'm still in training. So everything I say, it's just my opinions and my experiences. I always adhere to the FAA regulations, always double check, right? Always trust but verify. So everything that me and Krushil talk about today is just our experiences and our opinions. If you do listen to this podcast, I urge you to double check what we say and trust the actual regulations,
right,
and not just go with what we say.
Hey, George. Welcome to this podcast. Please give us a quick introduction, even though I talked a little bit about you, and tell us where you are at the point of the journey.
Yeah, man. So I'm actually going to college. I met you, Krushil, in college, and we built a good friendship. And I just got back into flying. I'm a private pilot 8-9 years ago, and I kind of stopped it, and then I got back into it earlier this year.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. So I want to start off with asking you the first question is, what really inspired you to become a pilot?
When I was in high school, I had a friend, and his dad was a pilot. And when I first went to his house for the first couple times, there was one time where I had to go into his dad's office, and he had this massive thumbtack map.
Wow.
And there's thumbtacks all over, and I was like, what in the world is this? And he was like, oh yeah, my dad flies for a living.
Wow.
And those are all the places that he went. He was a cargo pilot.
Uh-huh.
So it was every corner, all these weird places you wouldn't go to as a passenger pilot. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. And then later on, I met his dad, and it ended up being I would go to his house to hang out with him, but I would hang out with his dad more than him.
Right.
Just asking him questions, things like that. And so in high school, and in my senior year, I started my private pilot training.
Mm-hmm.
It took me the whole year to do it. And I got my pilot license. I went to Purdue University to complete my education in flight. And I spent a year and a half there, and I realized that that's really just not for me. I'm a slow learner. It takes time to process. And being in a university flight program, everything is fast-paced, right? And all the kids have to be at the same pace. They can't slow down for one student. And a year and a half later, I just thought, hey, this is really not for me, and I kind of quit. So I got back into flying May of 2023.
Wow, very inspiring. So, can you briefly describe your training process and its key stages?
Yeah, so the first stage is, private pilot. That's kind of the fundamentals, the foundation. I remember the first time I got in the plane, he was like, hey, take the controls and take off.
Uh-huh.
Normally, I was expecting you watch the instructor, and
right
later on,
a little simulator training or something.
Exactly.
Right.
But with flight training, you can't learn how to fly unless you fly, right?
Right.
And so that was really cool. Just started flying, get comfortable with the plane. The beginning stages is just takeoff and landing practices. They also do different maneuvers, stalls and steep turns, things like that.
Right.
And so that was the first part, which is takeoff and landings, things like that. And then once you get more comfortable, we started, the trips got longer, right? You normally take off, you go to the practice area, so to speak, and you just do maneuvers and come back. And then as training goes on, you start getting longer. You go to a different airport, something new.
Kind of like a cross-country flight, is it?
Exactly, yeah, cross-country flight. And that's interesting because, every airport is different. Riyadh is different. The runway length is different. And so, when you're flying, especially with private pilot, they want to get into a lot of visual sight picture, right? When the nose is at a certain angle when you're coming to land, in one runway, it's that same sight picture.
Right.
But when you go to a different airport and it's a bigger runway, just that width difference messes up your flight.
Your whole perspective. Right.
And then the biggest step, a milestone, would be soloing.
Right.
I remember that it was yesterday. It was a December evening,
mm-hmm.
and it was super windy, but there was no way to do it. It was December windy. And, we did 2-3 runs with the conductor. He got off, and he's like, all right, it's on you now. So we got up in the air, and we did, 3 takeoff and landings, and I was nervous,
uh-huh.
but also, you're like, oh my word, I'm alone now. But the minute you take off, then you're like, your mind is set.
Right.
Now you're thinking about, how to do base turn, crossing,
Right.
downwind, things like that. You don't really think about the fear. After the first landing, okay, all right, we're not dead. You do that 2 more times, and it went great. And that was just such a big accomplishment that you're flying all for your own. And I had the privilege of having my dad and mom come and see me, and also my dad's friend, the pilot.
Wow.
And that was just really proud,
Right.
because he was proud of me as well.
What does a typical day look like for you when you're training?
Yeah, so currently I go to a Part 61 school. And so, we have lessons. I come in around this time, maybe half an hour earlier. We go over what we're going to do today really quickly. I go pre-flight the plane by myself. Come back, we check the weather, we check the NOTAMs, we check TFRs being in the Philly area. We do get a lot of TFRs here and there.
Right.
And then we go up and we just fly. We fly, we hit a few airports, do different approaches, ILS, RNAV, VOR approaches. And we come back and then we kind of debrief, talk about, hey, what went wrong, what didn't go wrong.
Can you share a particular memorable experience during your training?
Yeah.
Maybe, traveling to a specific airport or something like that?
I can. For instrument rating, this is memorable, even though it's kind of scary, was we were flying into a little airport down in Maryland, and we were going to do our instrument approach. And, I've been flying in the foggles for like an hour. So maybe fly the entire way.
Can you also explain what foggles are real quick?
Yeah. So they're like almost like lab goggles, like that you see in your like biology lab. However, half of them are frosted, so you can't see the outside.
Okay.
You only see the visual of like inside the plane.
Okay.
You can only see your gauges, or currently I fly a glass cockpit. So all you can see your glass cockpit.
Right. So basically blocks the exterior view.
Exactly. And you're simulating, hey, you can't see outside.
Right.
Right? It's bad weather or something. So you have to fly by instruments. Everything is trust your instruments no matter what.
Right.
And with instrument flying, it's weird. When you're just looking inside, just the way your body works and your senses work, sometimes what you do on the plane, your body says something else.
Right.
And leading up to my memorable moment was we're flying this thing, and it was super hot. And I fly a Diamond DA40 now. So, the sun's kind of hitting you and you're hot, you're uncomfortable. And we got into this turn, and there was a procedure turn you have to do to enter.
Right.
I started doing the procedure turn, and all of a sudden I got disoriented. My body was saying one thing. My body was actually saying that we were diving. No, sorry. We were saying that we were going up, like we were, high pitch.
Right.
And I was like, oh, we're going to stall. But in reality, we were not. We were going level flight.
Right.
Just the turn and just the ear balance messed me up. And I started diving down. And my instructor didn't say anything. She was like, hey, check your altitude, check your speed, you're going up. And it was the weirdest thing. All of a sudden in my glass cockpit, I thought all I was seeing was blue. Not blue and brown, just blue.
Just blue, just the sky.
Exactly. So I was just pitching down, and it was scary. And I was like, why is she not doing something?
Right.
And it's at one point she was like, hey, check. And then she did like pull back and help me. And then I got back to my senses. I was like, okay, wait a second. And it turns out when I did that turn, I might have looked somewhere else. I don't know what happened, but I got disoriented.
Right.
And that was so memorable because we talk about, having those like risks of instrument flying in theory, but to experience it is different.
Right.
And when I experienced it, I was like, oh my word, this is really important, because it was a sunny blue day.
Right.
And I got disoriented. That was super memorable. And also going forward, even now, I'm very aware of like, hey, my body might say something, but I have to just definitely
trust your
instruments.
Right.
And that's not a natural thing to do. And so that's very memorable for me in my experience.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joel. Thanks for sharing your experience and insights. Your journey offers a valuable perspective for anyone with their eyes on the sky. As someone on a similar path, I find your story not just inspiring, but also incredibly informative. It's clear that the journey to becoming a pilot is as challenging as it is rewarding. Thank you so much for your time today, Joel.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, Krushil.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.